Everybody wants to know what this verdict means for the presidential election. You know that. That's all anyone's talking about at this point. Will President Trump be able to run and win? Will he be able to do the things that he was planning on doing?
It's a law of unintended consequences. The Democrats always dig so deep that they end up finding themselves. They think that their little trickery will be overlooked, that they're smarter than everybody else. America's looking through this nonsense, and I think the harder they hit him, the more they do this, the more money he's going to raise, the more independence he's going to get. As I mentioned, I mean, the swing of independent voters after this conviction has been unbelievable because no one believes it. And, you know, they're literally feeding him, you know, certain segments of the population that he might not have had in 2016 and 2020. Because for the first time, they realize that the system's coming down, that he's the victim. He's the victim that oftentimes some of their communities were. And you see them swing. You look at the African-American vote, right? That's swinging over to Donald Trump in spades.
Okay. Eric needs to calm down with all the talk about how black folks are swinging to his father in spades. They've already got enough potential trouble on their hands over those apprentice revelations.
Carolyn Kepscher and George Ross, who are the two advisors who work for Trump at the Trump Organization, and they're allowed a little bit more leeway because they work for Trump. So they get to say things that we can't say necessarily directly. And at one point, Carolyn Kepscher, who is the head of his hospitality unit and ran one of his golf clubs, sort of came outside herself and said, Kwame Jackson oversaw Omarosa, who was brought back onto the task and created all kinds of problems for herself and other people all along the season, but was great TV and was kept around for whatever reason. And for that, Carolyn Kepscher thought, well, Kwame deserves to be considered for how graceful he was in handling this. And Trump seemed to have an issue with this idea all along. You could see him reacting and shaking his head, wobbling his head, grimacing, wincing, before he said, yeah, but would America buy then he said the N-word, winning. And I remember I was looking right at Carolyn when this was spoken, and she is a very pretty blonde woman whose skin went bright scarlet. And then I looked at Trump to see the reaction that he was giving, like it was some sort of joke, and he was still wincing and bobbing his head, and he was serious. And
wow.
So now we're in mid-buildup. We've gone from secret tapes of Omarosa, Katrina Pearson, and Lynn Patton that worked for Trump discussing how to make something he said go away, to the expiration of an NDA to allow apprentice producer Bill Pruitt to tell his story. So the only thing left is for that alleged tape of the exchange to surface or be buried with a simple six-figure payment that'll be reimbursed and falsified in business records later. Regardless, though, it's gaining attention so much that even Fox News allowed a contributor to speak long enough to mention it.
I think the Biden team needs to make a positive case for what they're doing. Investment in HBCUs. He just had a bunch of them to the White House, their leaders recently. A lot of employment opportunities for Black Americans. They have a positive story to tell. I also think they do need to draw the contrast with Trump. The way he talked about Black Lives Matter, the Central Park Five, those are real things Donald Trump has said. There's a story out today about Trump's very racist language use again on another media outlet.
It's already insane that anyone needs any more proof of Donald Trump's disdain for anyone that isn't a straight, rich, white man to recognize the bigotry that he spews on a regular basis. Everyone knows it. Some bring it up to criticize him, while he and others do it to give a head nod to supporters that flock to him because of it.
Black America, because they love sneakers. They're into sneakers. They love this is a big deal, certainly in the inner city. So when you have Trump roll out his sneaker line, they're like, wait a minute, this is cool. He's reaching them on a level that defies and is above politics. The culture always trumps politics. And Trump understands culture like no politician I've ever seen.
And then I got indicted a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time. And a lot of people said that that's why the black people like me, because they have been hurt so badly and discriminated against.
I mean, since black people are all caught up in criminal activity and indictments like Donald, he's got their vote on Election Day, which is something he's only recently seen as a positive for presidential nominees. Back when his plan was to call Hillary Clinton an indicted candidate and led Chance to lock her up every day, it was oddly the worst thing ever.
She shouldn't be allowed to run. Okay, she shouldn't. And I'm not talking about what happened last Friday. I'm talking about right now. She shouldn't be allowed to run. There's virtually no doubt that FBI Director Comey and the great, great special agents of the FBI will be able to collect more than enough evidence to garner indictments against Hillary Clinton and her inner circle, despite her efforts to disparage them and to discredit them. If she were to win this election, it would create an unprecedented constitutional crisis. In that situation, we could very well have a sitting president under felony indictment and ultimately a criminal trial. It would grind government to a halt.
He pulled a 180 on that declaration now that he's the indicted and now convicted one. Just like he'll pull another on his latest political accusation of falsely targeting political enemies with the power of the DOJ. His lack of consistency and morals are on full display for everyone to see.
A lot of Democrats have expressed concern that if you're elected, you're going to want revenge. And some of your supporters have said, well, you know, mutually, you know, we're just talking about the weaponization of the justice system against political opponents. Some of your supporters have said, well, the only way to stop this is mutually assured destruction, right? If you do it to us, we're going to do it to you. You've said, no, my revenge is going to be success for America. You've just had this verdict.
Yeah.
Do you still feel the same? What's your thoughts on that?
It's a really tough question in one way, because these are bad people. These people are sick, and they do things that are so destructive. It's a very interesting question, and I say it and it sounds beautiful, right? You know, my revenge will be success, and I mean that. But it's awfully hard when you see what they've done. These people are so evil.
You famously said regarding Hillary Clinton, lock her up. You declined to do that as president.
I beat her. It's easier when you win. And they all said lock her up. And I felt, and I could have done it, but I felt it would have been a terrible thing. And then this happened to me. And so I may feel differently about it.